All right, well, we don't have a lot of time with Senator Sanders, but we do want to squeeze in some questions from all of you. I have a couple of students here with microphones. Give me a little auction bid, and I'll try to get somebody over to you. Please forgive us in advance that not many of you will get your questions heard because we're so short on time. Let's just go right behind you there.
Thank you. I'm a local lawyer and an independent voter. And I'm curious, one question Doug did not ask you is, of all the wonderful things that you espouse, how are we going to pay for it?
Good. Very good. Very fair question. I'm sorry we didn't get into it. When we start off with the premise that we have massive income and wealth inequality in America, when we start off with the premise that, as Warren Buffett reminds us, billionaires in this country are often paying a lower effective tax rate than truck drivers or nurses. When we start off with the premise that virtually every major corporation is stashing huge amounts of profits in the Cayman Islands and in other tax havens, it is clear to me that we need real tax reform. In addition to that, I am proposing and believe that we should have a tax on Wall Street speculation, which can bring in an enormous amount of money and tamper the kind of speculation that we're seeing there. So to answer your question, it has to be looked within the context of American society today, which is that 58% of all new income is going to the top 1%, that the top 1/10 of 1% own as much wealth as the bottom 90%. So to answer your question, I believe in progressive taxation.
Sure. I'd just like to say, you know, in America, I've seen like job security go because it hasn't been but a generation ago that my parents could work 40 years and retire. Between my husband and I, we've worked for two of the biggest corporations on the planet. But between him and I, we have been displaced or lost our jobs 7 to 8 times in our lifetime and tried to raise our children. There is no more job security anymore for people. In businesses, when they go to work, they have several careers. So we need to bring back that kind of job security to America.
Let's grab another one real quick.
My question kind of goes in a different direction, but I'm the daughter of 2 immigrants who worked incredibly hard and just got their citizenship this year. I was wondering what you think about the current path to citizenship and kind of what you would change about it.
Good. Well, let me start off with the first question. It's an excellent question, and you speak for millions of people. You know, there has always been a conflict between workers and employers. That's nothing new. But what has gone on in the last number of decades is there has been an increased contempt on the part of corporate America for the people who work for them. What we have seen is not only profitable corporations shut down in America and move abroad. They weren't losing money. They could just make more money by paying people 1/3 of the income that you received. And I think what we have to do in the nation is demand accountability and respect on the part of corporate America for the people who have made money for them. They just, you know, Pope Francis talks about this all the time. You just got to start treating people with respect. That's what the economy is supposed to be about. It's not about just making as much money as you possibly can and doing all that you can to make that money. So that takes us to other issues, which, among other things, and we didn't talk about it, is transforming our trade system in this country. I voted against NAFTA, CAFTA, and permanent normal trade relations with China because those trade agreements enabled corporations to shut down all over this country, move abroad, and bring their products back here. I think we have to rethink trade. To the woman's question about immigration, my dad was an immigrant. He came to this country from Poland at the age of 17 without a nickel in his pocket. He never made much money, but he was the proudest American you can imagine because he raised 2 kids in a way that never would have been the case from where he came from in a poor family in Poland. We have today 11 million undocumented people in this country. And I will tell you something that really troubles me. and that is we have a number of Republican candidates, you know their names as well as I do, who are demagoguing this issue. Now, we can disagree about what a rational immigration policy may be. That's fine. But we should not be singling out people because their families come from Mexico or elsewhere and suggest that all people are rapists or all people are criminals. That is an outrage. And we should not, in the year 2015, be trying to win votes by what is nothing more than old-fashioned racism and xenophobia. But to answer your question, we've got 11 million people in this country. My own view is that we need to provide legal status to those people as soon as possible. We need to pass comprehensive immigration reform. We did something in the Senate, was not all that I wanted. I voted for it. The House has yet to act. And ultimately, of course, we need a path toward citizenship. Those are my views.
I'm wondering, is there a moment in your career or in your life recently when you decided that you had to run for president?
As my wife, who is sitting here, will tell you, we had many, many torturous conversations about this. Because I've been around the block enough times to know what politics today is about. And what politics is about today is that if you run for office, you can expect people to be lying about you, to put out ugly innuendos about you, and in my case, even about my family. That's what we knew, and in fact, that is what is going to happen. There will be, sooner or later, very ugly 30-second ads telling you what a terrible human being Bernie Sanders is. And that's painful stuff. I'm a human being like anybody else. I've gone through that already in my political life. And when you take on the entire establishment, and you threaten Wall Street, and you threaten corporate America, I have no illusions that they're going to wake up one day and say, Bernie Sanders is right, you know? I think we have to change our ways and give working people a break and start paying our fair share of taxes and not ship jobs to China. Ain't going to happen. They're going to fight tooth and nail. So we knew this when we were getting into it, and we talked about it. I think at the end of the day for me is I've got 4 kids and 7 beautiful grandchildren. I love being the United States Senator from Vermont. It is a beautiful and great state, and I love my job. But I looked at what was going on in this country and in the world today, and I honestly believe that it's kind of too late right now for establishment politics and establishment economics. I think we need bolder ideas. We need a different type of political movement in this country. And I would say, to answer your question, maybe trying to do everything that I can to make sure that this will be a decent world for my kids and my grandchildren has been the major motivating factor.
Speaking of the sordid past, one of the other questions that I did not pose to you came from a former colleague of mine at the Wall Street Journal who emailed that I should ask you about the night you showed up at his house on Maple Street to tell them that the party was too loud and that it was time to shut down, and that you declined the cup of beer that was offered to the mayor.
Actually, he's right. By the way, that was when I was mayor of Burlington.
Exactly. You take the beer now. As president, you have to take beers.
Hi, I'm a student here at the University of Virginia, and you spoke very passionately about different groups that you want to reach, different marginalized groups, underrepresented people who don't really have a voice in the political process today. And you also mentioned that part of why you're running is to kind of start a new political dynamic and energize people who don't traditionally, I guess, participate. And so how exactly do you plan to do that? And what do you want those people to know about you running for presidency?
All right, allow us to catch this other question in the middle from Fred Hitz. Former Inspector General of the CIA, so be careful.
One of the things that strikes me, and you've been in the Senate for a period now, how did it get to be that we are so gridlocked? How is it that Washington can't, in some fashion or another, deal with some of these issues that you're talking about? For instance, exactly building the roads and building the bridges that we all know have to come.
I'm going to give you an answer that people, obviously, I am in politics, and obviously, I have my point of view, and obviously, I am partisan. I am running in the Democratic primary process, and I'm probably the most progressive member of the United States Senate, so I have my point of view. But what I want to tell you is what I believe is the truth, to answer your question, and I'll get back to that woman's question. And that is what has happened over the last 30 years or so is the Republican Party has moved very far to the right. If Dwight David Eisenhower reemerged tomorrow and walked into the local Republican Party meeting, he would be very, very isolated. Eisenhower, in terms of infrastructure, as you know, was the guy who built our interstate system. I cannot tell you the frustration that we have right now with an infrastructure that is crumbling, of trying to get the Republicans to come up with a way to finance rebuilding our infrastructure. Here is the truth, and this is the truth. Check it out. I don't mean to be partisan, but I got to tell you. This is the budget that the Republican Party passed, and I'm the ranking member of the Budget Committee. Do you think at a time when 35 million Americans have no health insurance that what we should be doing is throwing another 27 million people off of health insurance by repealing the Affordable Care Act and cutting Medicaid? At a time when families can't afford to send their kids to college, Republican budget cut Pell Grants by $90 billion. When children in America are going hungry, Republican budget cut billions and billions from nutrition programs. And then, to add insult to injury, they gave over $250 billion in tax breaks over a 10-year period to the top 0.2% by repealing the estate tax completely. That is the Republican Party. That is an extreme right-wing party. That is not Bob Taft's party. That is not Dwight D. Eisenhower's party. There are none of those guys left. It has become a right-wing party funded to a significant degree by people like the Koch brothers, for whom that agenda is exactly what they want. Read what David Koch campaigned on in 1980 when he ran on the Libertarian Party for president. Ending Social Security, ending Medicare, ending Medicaid, ending the Environmental Protection Agency. You have more and more Republicans who basically do not believe in government. They don't believe in government. That is, and the Democratic Party has moved, to the right a little bit too. So what you got is a centrist party and an extreme right-wing party. Now you talk about gridlock, okay? I will not support, and I will fight, cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. But I think to answer your question, it has to be seen within the context of a major party moving very, very far to the right. Now, in answering your question, you've asked a very important question, and I wish I could give you a simple and magical answer to it. I don't, but this is what I do know. We live in a country today, which, as I mentioned a moment ago, in the last election, 63% of the people didn't vote. All right? You live in a country where 80% of the young people didn't vote, where low-income workers overwhelmingly did not vote. Does anyone think we are going to change America to create a government which represents the majority of the people when the overwhelming majority of folks have given up on the political process and don't participate? Now, I have no magical answer to that problem, but let me give you an example. I was elected mayor of the city of Burlington way back when, 1981. In my re-election effort, we almost doubled voter turnout. Almost doubled voter turnout. How did we do that? We did that by standing up to the powers that be and fighting for policies that were positive for working families and kids and the elderly. And you know what people said? They said, Bernie Sanders is fighting for me. I'm going to get out and vote. And we almost doubled voter turnout, won working class wards 2-to-1 or 3-to-1. So what we need right now is to re-establish people's faith in government. And the only way we can do that is when you have leadership prepared to tell the truth about what's happening. And that truth is you have got to stand up to extremely wealthy and powerful people. I know a lot of people feel uncomfortable in hearing that. I know that. But that is the truth. And that's why when Doug asked me, what do you do? How do you bring about these changes? The only way I know is when you rally the American people. Trust me, the idea of having free tuition at public colleges and universities sounds very radical today. If 1 million young people marched on Washington with that demand, we would have it. But if 80% of young people don't vote, we won't have it. And that's the kind of change we need to raise public consciousness, to get people involved in the political process in a way that does not exist now.
Senator Bernie Sanders.